celebration of Black History Month. We shared last Sunday, and I just want to reiterate that every day, for me, and I think for all of us, that our ancestry is traced back to those that look like you and I, that every day is a celebration of our history. But this month, we invite the community, our brothers and sisters of different races and ethnic groups and different backgrounds to join us in celebrating the lives of Black folks, past, present, and the look towards the future. So let me begin here. Black history does not begin with slavery in the U.S., as we often think it does, or as it is often presented as. If we are talking about Black people in America, that also predates slavery in America, because we were here before our ancestors were forced here, those that were still in the motherland. Chattel slavery, I would suggest to you, is a moment in the history of this country, a moment. Albeit it is one of those moments that change the trajectory of our collective experiences and charted America on a course of what has become irreparable destruction, or irreversible destruction. Even so, for Black Americans, the history of chattel slavery cannot be understood from a narrow, linear viewpoint. I watched a clip this week on social media. It was a short clip of Angela Davis, who I have seen in person a few times and heard her lecture and actually participated in a seminar when I was studying in California with her. But she said this. She said that, speaking of our history as being enslaved in this country and how it is portrayed, she said this. She said that for a long time we have had this very bad habit of only representing slavery as trauma, as violence, and forgetting, as Toni Morrison pointed out, that there's something else there. It's not just about violence, she went on to say. It's not just about the traumas. It's not just about the horrors. And as a matter of fact, the most remarkable thing about the Black freedom struggle is that in the midst of all of that, and she said, because we can't deny that the violence and trauma and the horrors took place, but in the midst of that, Black people learned how to create beauty. In the midst of that trauma, that horror, that violence, we learned how, out of that, to create beauty. So today, as we continue our celebration of Black history, I want to challenge us to wake up, and to wake up in this moment in our collective history and again find ways to create beauty, even in the midst of economic violence that we're living in today, political trauma that we are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and the horrific erosion of the families, our families and communities that's happening all around us. That once again, from the ashes of our despair, that we come to learn how to create beauty and thereby renew the earth. The history of chattel slavery in the U.S., although inflicted upon people of African descent, the violence, trauma, and horrific, inhumane treatment of millions of people of color is a history of the depravity of the enslavers. It's their history. Of the depravity of the enslavers. This is the history that some are trying to erase, to rewrite, to run from, to deny their their history of ongoing participation in this vulgar treatment of men, women, and children. Let's set the record straight. It's their history. Black history is our response to these horrific systems of oppression that sought to break us, to rob us of our identity, self-worth, and dehumanize us in a way that we would behave with the same moral depravity as our enslavers. But instead, our history is one of triumph. As Maya Angelou said, like dust, we rise. We continue to rise even today. In many ways, we have risen and reclaimed the many accomplishments recorded in our history during the period of Reconstruction. Yet, the struggle continues. And at times, it seems that for all that has changed, very little has changed. Consider with me for a moment this. Did you know that during the 18th and 19th centuries, the average life expectancy for enslaved black people in the U.S. was between 21 and 36 years of age? That black infant mortality rate was 50%, with half of black babies born during this period dying in their first year of life. Did you know? For those children who survived, they were twice as likely to die before the age of 14, never reaching maturity, as compared to white children. Some estimated that enslaved blacks on average lived to only 21.4 years of age. They never made it into full adulthood. This low life expectancy was due, it is argued, to environmental factors such as nutritional deficiencies, intense physical labor, and minimal medical care. That was 160 some years ago. But what has changed? And what has remained the same? Well, let's take a look at this. According to the Office of Minority Health out of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in 2023, the latest stats, the mortality rate for black African American infants was 95% higher than infants nationwide. What has changed? What remains the same? In 2023, black African American infants were 2.5 times more likely to die from problems related to being born too early or with low birth weight compared with infants in the U.S. overall. What has changed? What remains the same? In 2023, black African American mothers were 49% more likely than mothers nationwide to receive late or no prenatal care. What has changed, or what remains the same? Let's look at life expectancy today. According to the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, the life expectancy of black Americans has declined since the COVID pandemic to about 71 years as compared to white Americans whose life expectancy is around 77 years. Accordingly, it is believed that the difference in life expectancy among black Americans can be attributed to various factors, including structural racism, social economic status, access to health care, and environmental conditions. In 2026, what are we to make of these life-altering disparities? We are 163 years post-Emancipation Proclamation, yet the disparity between the lived experiences of blacks and whites and the trauma, violence, and horror of enslavement persists. The Let's take a look back. 1866 to 1877, during the post-slavery Reconstruction era, African Americans made significant strides in various areas, including education, political participation, and economic opportunities. For example, in education, the establishment of schools across the South, including the nation's first black colleges such as Fisk University and Howard University. The Freedmen's Bureau played a crucial role in overseeing these schools and providing health care facilities for the freed men and women. According to the Library of Congress, during the years after the war, black and white teachers from the North and South, missionary organizations, churches, and schools worked to give the emancipated population the opportunity to learn. Former slaves of every age took advantage of the opportunity to become literate. Remember, during slavery, it was against the law to teach one that was enslaved how to read and write. During this period, Booker T. Washington, you know who Booker T. Washington is? A towering historical figure, born into slavery in 1856, rose to prominence as one of the most influential blacks, founding Tuskegee Institute. As a side note, my granddad, who was educated alongside Booker T. Washington, was the first Professor Addison in my family. Before I became a professor, my paternal grandfather, Professor Albert Lloyd Addison, was hired by Miller County, Georgia in the late 1800s and taught black and white children in Colquitt, Georgia until 1910. After the Civil War, with the protection of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution and the Civil Rights Act of 1866, African Americans enjoyed a period when they seemed to thrive. For example, political participation, African Americans were voting and holding office, participating in the political process, including positions in Congress. Did you know that in the 1800s, blacks were voted into Congress? Not just in Congress, in their state legislatures, in governorships. Black folks came right out of slavery and charged up the ladder. They didn't wait. They came right out from years of being not able to be taught to read or write, and they assumed to think, to be able to become engaged in the political process and become elected officials in this country. Economic opportunities, despite the challenges, African Americans sought to acquire land. They bought land, engaged in agriculture. Some of them rented the land and became sharecroppers. Civil rights, the passage of the 13th and 14th Amendments, affirmed the rights of African American citizens and prohibited racial discrimination. Our communities, we created communities, organizations that became centers of culture and education and social organization. I mean, we came out of a place of being terrorized, traumatized, violated, separated, forced separations of families, and right away we begin to form communities. Reconnect families, form organizations, centers of culture, churches, organizations that begin to shore us up and begin to give us back what had been robbed from us for years. But the backlash was swift. And it was violent and added more trauma and more horrific abuse to what had been done. We see the forming of the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow, black codes, limiting voting rights, forced segregation, and new ways to enslave the formerly enslaved, vis-a-vis the prison system. Looking back through history, we see that the moment we are in today in this country, in some ways parallel where we were over 100 years ago, that there's nothing new to us as a people when we look at what we're faced with today. We have gained nothing in this country over the years by default, meaning nothing has been given to us as a people, but only through our direct participation in the struggle for liberation. I'm reminded of the words of a song we used to sing when I was a child in church that admonished us to do three things: to watch, to fight, and to pray. To watch, fight, and pray. Why is this significant? Well, to watch, you can't watch if you're asleep, right? You got to wake up. You have to be aware. You have to be present and pay attention to movement. You have to observe. You have to sense what's going on around you. You have to be aware to sound and to silence. Because we can hear not only through what's spoken, but what's not said. And so to watch was a part of our strategy as a people throughout our period of enslavement in this country and post-slavery, to be watchers, to watch, to be awake, to be present, to see, to observe, and to always strategize and be one step ahead. To fight. To fight. Although political ramifications exist and manifest, such as economic justice, social and environmental equity is what we're fighting for, we've always understood that our fight was a spiritual fight. Yes, we seem to be fighting on the plane of this world, but we understood that there was something deeper that we were dealing with. It was the depravity of heart and mind, the soul and spirit, the lack of it from the oppressors, that we sought to challenge them to move up a little higher in their way of viewing the world, in their ability to love and to see and to be humane, to give them a humanity that they had lost somewhere in their journey throughout the cold caves of Europe. And so we fight. And then to pray. Pray. I hear sometimes folks will say, don't just say pray when something happens. We got to do more than prayer. And they will disparage the role and value and importance of prayer. And I will say, if you can't do nothing else, pray. If you can't watch or fight, pray. Because in prayer is the watch and the fight. You can't watch without praying. You can't fight without praying. So above all, pray. And what is it to pray? It's not to look up to the sky and ask a God that you've never seen, heard, or felt, or talked to do something on your behalf. But for our ancestors, to pray was to be present with oneself. To be present with oneself, even in the midst of struggle and suffering. To be so present with oneself that you could hear the inner call and voice of the divine. That inner voice of the divine is our ancestors, as Paul talks about it, is so great a cloud of witnesses in the book of Hebrews, that ancestral connection was there. And even though we were under the weight of oppression and the whip, that our ancestors was there fighting in the spirit world on our behalf. And they kept giving us hope to fight on. To fight on. To watch, to fight, and to pray. To watch and fight with the knowing that truth will prevail, that justice will win out, and love will conquer all. So to my young, fierce, black family, those who are now the generation that's on the front line of this fight, as elders, as I shared last week, it is our charge to watch. That's what we've been called to do, because we sit in a position where we can see what those that are on the front line of battle cannot always see. But to my young ones, those that are not the leaders of tomorrow, but those that are in that seat and position at the helm or to take the helm today, know that we have been here before. Don't think this is anything new. Don't be confused by what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what some are suggesting. This is nothing new. We've been here as a people before. Learn from the past so you do not repeat the mistakes that were made in the past. Learn your history. Know the struggle. Know the strategies. Know the tactics. Know the battles that were won and those that were lost. And learn from each of them. Hear from the elders, those that have wisdom to impart to you. So that you who are now responsible for securing the future of the next generations to come, that you will be wise enough to move us to that next place in our history. Our quest, my dear ones, is not to become more like the oppressor. That's not what our goal is. We do not want to become as violent as he is, as hateful as he is, as vile as he has been, as they have been. We don't want to be like they have been. We don't want to be them. For as Audre Lorde taught us, we cannot dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. The house that was built, called the United States of America, was deeply flawed within. The struggle for our people has been to become accepted by white America. That was the first lie that we brought into. That is no longer our quest. We do not want to be like the oppressor. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. And I want to just footnote this. All of white America was not in alignment with this oppressive nature of this country. So there's not painting a broad brush against all of white America, because I must acknowledge, as you do, Carrie, that there's white blood in me, that I have white ancestry also. All white folks were not in alignment with the brutality that existed in this country. So let's be clear on this. It's not an indictment of a whole race of people. Many of our brothers and sisters of the white race of European background have been trailblazers in calling this country to task on its cancerous history of racial and economic oppression. They fought alongside of us and sometimes went ahead in battle to fight on our behalf. Nevertheless, we have tried for 163 years to make this country do the right thing, to be accepted for who we are. And we thought if we could talk like, act like, be like, model our families like theirs, take on their value systems, their religious beliefs, and somehow our blackness would become invisible to the evil racist eye. And we would be just like them. Wake up, my children. The time has come, as Brother Garvey and Brother Malcolm told us. We must build a new nation built on righteous principles. We must dismantle the savagery of capitalism with its values entrenched in profit vis-a-vis the exploitation of people and greed over generosity, because we know that there is enough on this planet Earth for all of us. No child should go to bed hungry. I was deeply troubled, as Brother Kerry was telling me today as we came to church, that there was a member in the community that was found frozen to death in the streets. God forbid. There is enough land for all of us to have a piece of God's earth, to have a roof over our head and warmth and clothing and the essentials of life. It is but for our greed that has dominated this Western thought that situations like this occur. My young ones, the young bloods who are on the front lines, leading this revolution, this transformation, this thrust forward into the new day. If you are to lead this next movement of our people, you are called to be leaders of the world in a new world order, not the same. What the founders of this country came up with in 1776 was good. Yes, it was good. It was good for them, especially good for them. But it has run its course even for them. And we see them now fighting like mad men and women to hold on and stay in a burning house, to put out the fire. The house is coming down. There's no saving the house. It is imploding from within. Let us be clear. We cannot make America great again, because America was never great for my people. It was never great for the indigenous people in this land. And in fact, it was not great for the average white American either, because they suffered in poverty, they suffered in illness and disease, because those at the top was extracting all they could for themselves. It is time that we begin to ask different questions. Not how can we fit into this system, or how we can make this system better or make it work for us. Those are the wrong questions. The questions now must lead us to find a more excellent way, as Brother Paul taught us in Scripture. We must find ways to rummage through the debris of this country and extract what we can to create a more perfect union built on equity, justice, shared resources, inclusion, and an abiding knowledge of our shared humanity and our stewardship of Mother Earth as sacred. My young friends, as an elder in the community, if you are to lead, and you are the leaders, we sit back and we pray for you, we watch for you, but you are on the front line, and we cover you in the spirit. Just know that the weapons of your warfare must change. You cannot fight with the master's tools. Like David, you cannot take up Saul's armor to slay Goliath. You have to use what your ancestors have given you down through the years, to watch, to fight, to pray. We must restore our ancestral values that were rooted in community and family, in Ubuntu. I am because you are. That there's enough for all of us, and we are in this together. We must restore and hear the voices of the past, not being stuck in yesterday about what happened to us, but remembering that when it happened to us, we took that lemon and we made lemonade. We took that abuse and we turned it into our ability to create gardens of beauty. We turned it into our ability to transform our lives. Ashe and Amen. Thank you for